Hey TNA fam, how's it going? We're back at the Impact Zone podcast, and we're here again to talk more TNA wrestling shows. Today I want to talk about another thing, why TNA has got to keep a good relationship with its core fan base, its hardcore fan base. Of course, I've said this a few times here and there with saying that we need to appeal to more of a mass audience. We need to appeal to lapsed WWE fans, lapsed AEW fans, lapsed fans in general, especially those lapsed, more casual fans or whatever else it is. TNA can do that. TNA can be a place for people to be like, yeah, okay, I'll give this a shot and see how I feel about this. And not every show is perfect, but if you've got enough good things for the fans, then they will be happy to watch and, whatever. So the reason TNA has to do this is because, again, they're so much smaller than AEW or WWE. Where they, yes, TNA can still, I feel like, make mistakes or whatever, but I think the TNA has to have that relationship with its fans and say, yes, we know that this thing that we tried or that thing that we tried didn't really work out, or you weren't really feeling that, or whatever else it was. But, we're sometimes in this wrestling landscape, we experiment with things and we try things and they just don't hit. We're sorry we weren't able to fulfill the thing that you fans wanted to see from us. So we thought it best to try to reset as quickly as possible and find something that the fans would, enjoy. Because again, that's how they get their money. If they were in a much more stable and higher amount of money just for existing, then they perhaps could say, well, we can maybe have a few more fumbles or whatever. But realistically, they shouldn't be like, yeah, we can afford more fumbles. But that's where some of these places like WWE and AEW are. They're not really caring about their fans all that much, or at least the hardcore fans or whatever else it was. They're just especially WWE, they're just selling out to the highest bidder. And some of the stuff that's going on there, I don't really like myself. I understand the stuff, some of this should be stuff that TNA should do in some regards, of saying, well, if they're going to pay for it, or if they're going to, give us so much money to come over there and do a show, then, we would be dumb to say no to that. But we cannot just sell out to the highest bidder if it alienates our core audience. Because when that, big bidder is gone and whatnot, and we have to fall back on our core audience, but since we betrayed them, now they're pretty much gone, then we don't really have anything to fall back on. And we're TNA isn't in the same position as what WWE is, where it's yes, they have a long, big history, but not as many people are as familiar or as big fans of TNA as what they are of WWE. So WWE is such a much more big house name that, and I've talked about that before, but it's one of those things of, it's synonymous with wrestling, or with what wrestling is today. So it would never be in that position of, or almost would never be in that same position of somebody saying, hey, we'll give you all this money, come and wrestle in our country, or, they might, but where it's oh, but we're not going to let you do half the things that you intend to do, or whatever else it is, and the women have to wear, full body suits and whatever else and all this other stuff and rah. So obviously, I'm mostly talking about the Saudi shows and whatnot, but I still feel like you know, there is um, there is a thing of saying there is a potential for this sort of thing to happen in TNA. It's not impossible. You never say never, but the thing is, like, it's very less likely. But they should still never sell out on their hardcore fans. They should not jack up the ticket prices just for the sake of it. Like some of the ticket prices, some people have been complaining about how high some of the ticket prices have been, but it's not just TNA saying, "Hey, we want more money," but it is probably a piece of them saying, "Well, we just need to charge more because we need a little bit more out of our ticket sales." That and the arenas being like, "Well, we need a bigger return on, some of these events that we host here at our venue. So whenever a show does come to town, we need to say, hey, to book this arena or to book this venue or to book, however many seats on any given night, this is the level of investment we need, and this is the level of gate that we expect you to draw. So if you don't draw that, well, then that's eating into your money that you're paying us. That's not our fault. That's your fault for not being big enough and bad enough or able enough to get, the tickets or the pay-per-views or the shirts or whatever else sold to cover the gate. Obviously they do cover the gates, but it is, one of those things of saying, well, they're obviously being a lot of these venues are charging more to some of these places as well. So it's not just TNA being like, let's jack up the prices for no reason or whatever, just because we want to make another $1 billion profit this year or whatever it is. They haven't been in profit in years, so they're maybe and maybe it's again the venues themselves being like, hey, you've got to increase your prices because, hey, we're increasing the cost of these arenas. Plus, again, they're just going to these bigger and bigger arenas. So those bigger and bigger arenas are going to cost more, just in general. So people complaining about the ticket prices, I can understand that, but it's you don't understand everything that kind of goes into why those ticket prices are that high or whatever else it is. It's not just because TNA is greedy or whatever. Perhaps they are a bit greedy, but for right now, especially since they've the last 10 years or whatever it's been, where they've been in that big slump, or even actually that big 10-year slump that they actually had nearly a decade, over 2 decades ago now, I think actually. No, over a decade ago. That they're trying to compensate from that and from the debt that they're in, effectively, because they're still technically in debt, and whatnot. So they're still trying to bounce back effectively from that and get back to being, all wheels running type thing and back in profit and back in the green and whatnot. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make more money so that they can, not just, and no, they're not just doing it to make profits or whatever and to cancel out their debt, but they're trying to be like, okay, these fans want to see the best wrestling show that we can offer them. So we need to charge them just a little bit more money so that we can have just a little bit more money so that we can bring in more people, so that we can have bigger arenas, so that we can have bigger superstars, more opportunities for younger stars that we can build into our future stars, etc., etc., etc. So those are the ideas of why that would be. But TNA needs to and this is why sometimes as well, I think I said this in another recent video that I did, that perhaps they need to have a frank and honest conversation and a media call with people saying, This is why we raise the ticket prices. This is why the ticket prices are at the level that they're at. We understand some people's frustrations with the fact of how expensive the tickets are or whatever else it is. But this is not because we hate our fans. We love our fans. They got us through the darkest times of this company, and they've continued to support us, and we really appreciate them. We would love to drop the ticket prices, but we need to make enough money from our ticket sales to cover these bigger and bigger arenas and to cover these bigger and bigger expenses that we're bringing in. So we will be bringing in some bigger things, better cameras, better microphones, better sets, better pyrotechnics, better lighting, better whatever, better wrestlers, better production, etc., 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 etc. So we will be doing all of these things, but we need a little bit extra money for that to be possible. So that is why the ticket prices are the prices that they're at. But that's the sort of relationship thing that they should be doing. They should be, out there even making statements on Facebook or Twitter on their social media and saying, we have heard some discussion about why the ticket prices are so high or whatever else it is for some of these shows and whatnot. Keep in mind, this is basically a 10,000 seat arena, I believe. And this is one of the big 4 shows for the year. So again, we're mostly talking about Genesis here. So again, that's why the ticket prices are a lot higher as well. It's one of the big 4 for the year. It's not just a random TV episode. And yes, the Curtis Caldwell Arena, that the next quote-unquote random episode of TV is happening in the same arena as what Genesis is happening in. So again, that's probably why those ticket prices are so high. But it's also the fact that they're trying to be like, we need to go big or go home. We need to go big or go home. We need to sell out this big arena, or at least come as close as what we can to selling out this big arena, because we want to make a statement. We want to make a statement that we are here and that no one can slop us down or stop us. We are entering a new era, and we are going to kick it out of the park. We are going to be the biggest wrestling company that we can be. We are going to vie for that number 2 position like never before, and if in the next 3 years we can show that if you give us a little bit of a budget, well, we can turn this ship right around and we can actually make this thing a real reality of saying, hey, you thought we did well before? We're going to kick ass even harder now that we actually have some money to play with, and now that we can actually show people, no, this is, what we do. Sometimes we won't hit it out of the park every single time or with every single thing, but we will listen to the fans, and we will, have that good relationship with the fans. We will continue to do the meet and greets, and we will continue to, care for our fans and trust in our fans and have that positive relationship with their fans. The main reason, as I sort of said, with the reason that they need to do this is because they're so small. They need that positive feedback from their core audience, because without them, and yes, you can get some, again, casual fans tuning into what you're doing. That is where you're going, but you can't just be like, let's bring in all these people and let's bring in all these things and forget that our core audience is here. We've still got to satisfy them, because these people that are, more casual, they're going to tune in, then they're going to tune out. They might tune in again for Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or Rebellion or these big shows, but they're probably not going to tune in for some of the smaller shows. So, and our core audience fans, they're going to. Yes, we might convert some people that are casual watchers into tuning into us more often if we have bigger and better things for them to see every single time that they come in to see what we're offering and whatnot. But again, you can't forget about that core audience, because when, like, let's say you like on the first one you capture, let's be generous and give them 50% of the casual audience retained for a few shows after that. I don't think that would be the case. I think it would be way, way lower. But let's like be really generous. Like, let's say it's 50%. Then let's say at Rebellion, you like that drops a little bit. Let's say it drops by like 10%. Let's say. So now you've got 40%. Like more of that casual audience, like another 50% tuned in for that show, or whatever it was, the numbers that you expected tuned in for that show. But the retention is the people that watched the show are now like 40% of what, were watching then. So it's gone down. So again, you're seeing that casual audience fade off somewhat. So, or more so. But now you've got maybe 40% of those people now locked in, maybe, to being more so of your core audience. Like, and you'll see that, like, maybe it'll go down, maybe it'll go up, maybe it'll, float around another 30% or whatever it is, or maybe 40%. I don't know. Like, that's really big, like, if that happens. But, like, again, if you get that, or if it goes up, if you suddenly have a hot angle or something really good, that people are like, holy shit, no, TNA's got this thing going, we've got to tune in, this is crazy, let's tune in and see what's happening, and da-da-da-da. That's where it's like, oh, suddenly it's going up, from where it was. But most of the time, people are going to tune in for the big things, then tune out. Sometimes as I said, you'll get people continuing to tune in, continuing to watch, because some of those people are going to be like impressed and might be like, hey, maybe I'll keep watching, see what they've got to offer for the next couple of months or whatever it is. And like some of them will stay and some of them won't. Like, like most of them probably won't. Especially depends on what you're actually offering them or what you're actually showcasing to them and whatnot. You're not just, again, doing things day by day or whatever else it is. You've got to be thinking everything needs to be, all the wheels need to be churning. You need to be already seeing all these other things kind of happening at the same time. So everything needs to be continuing. You can't just have Mike Santana, the one wheel, kind of pulling the train ahead. You can't just have the Hardys, the one other wheel, turning the thing ahead. Leon Slater doing the same thing and whatnot. You can't just have these big stars that you have in any of these divisions or whatever it is that are turning things forward. You've got to have something for each of those areas to be kind of doing and kind of being like, okay, who is our next big person in the X division or in the tag team division or in this thing? Okay, cool. This is our next big person or big tag team or whatever else it is, or the next thing that we're trying to get going. So they're going to have as equal time to whomever is our top person right now in terms of like story time, match time, booking, da-da-da-da-da-da. They're not just here and just having matches that don't really matter. Like Mustafa Ali, I think that they've had a massive like misfire with Mustafa Ali over the last few months. He's one of their biggest stars, but they're not really doing anything with him. He's kind of just there. He should be either, fighting for that international title, which I think is a little bit beneath him, but whatever. You could give him that upper main event sort of spot run into becoming like a proper main eventer. That, or you should give him an upper card slot and push him into being a main eventer. You can still have him be part of a faction and whatnot or whatever, but he needs to be like on that level. Even not even just for him, but for saying, hey, okay, well, who else is in this upper main event sort of scene? Well, this person, Macklin, this person, Mike Santana. Well, we've already done Santana and Ali, but people really like that, so we could go back to it in a few months or whatever it was. And things like that. So again, like, okay, we might think about going back to that. Nick Nemeth, like, he's been floating around, whether he's been in a tag team or whether he's been in singles. He's got that Cody Shock gauntlet. He hasn't really cashed that in yet. So we're still sort of trying to see what we're going to do with that. I don't know whether it's, what they're going to do there and how they're going to do it. Like, some people were saying, Santana might win the belt back off Kazarian, but Nick Nemeth might cash in, da-da-da-da. So we might be going down that route. Or maybe, mid-match in the Mike Santana Kazarian match, Nick Nemeth will cash in. I don't know about that because, like, I feel like, again, I guess I don't want to get on this subject too much, but, like, that feels like something that is somewhat to be avoided in some ways, I think. I think if you want to get Nick Nemeth to cash his thing in, you need to cash it in while, like, not in the match, after the match, or as much as possible, near to the finish of the match. You don't want it to become this long-winded, like, triple threat. You want, if you were going to go with Nick Nemeth, you want the match to, really end almost as soon as he cashes in, or of almost it ended, sort of thing. Like, Kazarian hit the flux capacitor, or hit the, I'm about to say the dead eye, but the I can't remember what it's called now. That move, that reverse pile driver that he does, and it feels like, or like the springboard leg, though I don't really think that finishes many matches, or the cutter or something, and it feels like, he won the match and whatnot. Okay, but suddenly Nick Nemeth pulls him out of the ring or something and throws him in the steps and says, I'm cashing in right here, right now, blah, 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 and then goes to pin Mike Santana or whatever, or whatever, the opposite. Like, I think it would be better the opposite way. Like, Mike Santana hits the spin the block. He goes for the cover, but Nick Nemeth pulls him out of the ring, throws him into the steps, and then says, I'm cashing in, and then pins him to Kazarian to try to win, but Kazarian kicks out, like, or something, so it feels like, oh man, like, it was almost over, rather than being like, oh man, like, it didn't feel like this match was going to be over. It felt like, he's basically just cashed in after they've knocked each other down after like 10 minutes of action or whatever it's been. Instead of it being like, oh, this was a good 20-minute match or 30-minute match or whatever it was, and that's the finish, definitely. Oh, here's Nick Nemeth out of nowhere. Like, what? Yeah. So, but yeah. TNA needs to keep that positive relationship with the fans. So even if, like, and I've seen some negative, like, stuff about the whole situation where it's like people want don't want Kazarian to be the champion and they want Santana to be the champion. That's good in some ways because that tells me that they're invested. They still want to see this guy. And that's sort of like the song and the dance of, like, sometimes doing this business is we need to keep you as interested as possible in the person that you're seeing. Because if you ever sort of sit back on your haunches and say, okay, cool, we've seen this guy, he's done it, he's done the thing. Now we're no longer interested because he felt like he's finally gotten everything that he deserves and whatnot. So now we don't really care. Now we're tuning out, and now we're kind of like, who's the next person? Like, or whatever. That should honestly be the way of some things as well, because it is like, oh yes, who's the next person? Who's the next person? Always type thing. But when you have something like this where it's like Josh Alexander or Mike Santana didn't really get their moment as the champion that much, you know, so now let's really rally behind them again and tell the company, no, we want to see this guy. This is the guy we want to see. Even if it takes another 3-6 months, whatever it's going to be, we want this guy. This is the guy we want. Da 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 da. So give us this guy. Okay, cool. They hear that and they know that, but what they're trying to do again is trying to develop enough people on their roster to be like, okay, cool, you get to have Mike Santana in a few more months, but then we're also going to have all these other people for him to face, and you're going to feel really good about seeing Mike Santana do all this stuff. But then you're going to get to see like somebody else come along that now grabs your attention, and now you're like, oh, cool, Santana's done his thing, and maybe he can step aside for a little while, and this other person can be the top dog or whatever. And maybe Mike Santana can feud with them or whatever for a while or whatever else it is. So, because again, he's still one of your top guys. You've still got to have him there as much as what you can to draw for the company. It's the same thing with Moose. Like they said, okay, cool, you're still one of our top guys, or at least you're one of the guys that we really have a lot invested in. So again, or at least even the fans do. So again, even though we've taken that title off of you or whatever else it is, you're still going to be in the hunt, or we're still going to give you something else significant to work with. So again, you're not just saying, oh, well, we don't care about you, or we're demoting you to the mid-card or anything like that. No, we're not just demoting you to the mid-card. We're giving you another platform, another opportunity to showcase yourself and to, be a draw and be something for, what we're doing and whatnot. But yeah, this is why, again, I said this. They need to have these sorts of discussions sometimes with the fans and saying, no, we really have your best interests at heart. We understand why people might be frustrated or whatever else it is and all of that sort of stuff, but we will give you what you want to see, but we just want to give it to you in the best way possible. We want Mike Santana to have great opponents to face. We don't want him to get that title and then there's no one else for him to face. We haven't built anyone else up to face him, or there isn't somebody else that people are really excited to see also on our roster that's like Leon Slater or whatever else is now in that division or now looking to be in that division. So now people might be looking at at him being like Leon being one of the next guys that they might be invested in into that world title picture. Maybe he's not going to get it for a little while, but again, you can still start planting those seeds of saying maybe he'll get there one day, and then he wins, like I said before, maybe he wins a tag title or maybe he wins an international title, and then you go with that for 6 months or for however long, and then you get people really clamoring for Leon to potentially be the next big thing. And then you say, okay, cool, we're going to make him that next big thing, now after another 6 months or whatever it is. And then you finally get to that point of saying, okay, let's go from here and let's culminate this kid and give the fans what they want to see. But we're not just saying, okay, cool, we're going to give people what they want to see of this kid doing his thing and whatnot or whatever it is. We've got to craft our roster and craft our storylines around giving that person that moment and then saying, okay, cool. At every twist and turn now, every person that's coming after him is a legitimate threat to that title. Not just because of who he is, but because of how we've built them up. So you can't just build up one person or another one person. You need to build up the whole roster that's around that person so that, again, they have people and stories and things to go into when they're the champion. Even if they've beaten somebody, well, that person went away for 6 months or whatever it was, or they were in the division for another 6 months, and they've been doing stuff, and they've evolved, and now they've done something else, and now they're back and whatnot, or whatever it is. So now they want another chance, or whatever it is. Now they've been on a hot streak suddenly, and all of this, like, again, they come back and they get in there. That's why I was so meh about Cedric Alexander winning that battle. Was it a battle royal? Whatever it was, the number one contendership for the X division. I was like, this is so meh because it's like we've already seen this. So, and there hasn't been enough build up of him being doing stuff for weeks or months or whatever it is, and suddenly being now he feels oh man, he could come back and do this thing and beat Leon this time or whatever else it is, or somehow they're going to up the stakes or whatever else it is. Obviously they're going to have to do that, but yeah, now it does feel like he's been building for 3 months, 6 months, whatever it's been, where it's he's winning, and suddenly it's oh shit, he's come back out of nowhere and he's doing all this stuff, and it feels like he's on the ride of a lifetime suddenly, and now he gets this number one contendership, and now it feels oh well, maybe he'll win now because, well, maybe he won't, but maybe he will because of the, you've been building him up for the last few months, rather than it being oh, okay, that's kind of random. Why have you decided to give him this win, when you haven't really done anything else with him to kind of build him up more to make it feel oh, he's earned it and he's on the way back or whatever. He's the Cedric Alexander of old or whatever, or he's a new Cedric Alexander. He's more dangerous than ever, even when he went into the program initially with Leon, he only had one other match, I think, before that, I think. No, or was it? No, it was he had the one match with Mustafa, then he had that triple threat with Leon and what's his name? Jason Hotch. And then he had the one-on-one match with Leon, I think. I can't remember any other matches. Maybe I'm forgetting one, but those were the matches that I believe that he had. He didn't win against Ali, obviously. He didn't win against in the triple threat, and then he lost to Slater. So, and then he's basically only won I think 2 matches besides this number one contendership in the time that he's been there. So it's wow, it doesn't really feel like he's getting in that position of oh yeah, he could win this thing or whatever. No, he's just feeling I'm here, and whatnot. I exist. I'm not on a hot streak. I'm not, dangerous or really threatening to the title or whatever. I haven't gone on a journey, or I don't really have a story reason to win that title except I want it or whatever else, or it fits with me and who I am or whatever, and all of that sort of stuff. And whatnot. Even I believe he had a title. Oh, well, no, he had a one-on-one match with Mike Santana that was non-title. I think it was actually filmed before Santana won the belt. So yeah, but whatever. But yeah, they pretended to say, hey, well, this isn't for the belt, this is for Pride or whatever. Should have just said, I want you one-on-one, and the title's on the line, or whatever. Even if it had been taped weeks in advance or whatever it was. That's what hurts you again while saying, and that's why it probably should have happened at the tapings like there should have been tapings just after Bound for Glory and whatnot, because like that would have helped things even just that little bit. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. You know, even though people would have known about it, it would have been like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. He got to challenge the champion, even without much build. It's just a TV episode or whatever else it is anyway. So it's just a cool match to see at that point. Because, yeah, this is for pride or whatever. And I want to see if I can hang with the world champion. You know, that sort of thing. But yeah, no, TNA needs to keep that relationship with the fans always and forever, as much as they can, because those are the ones, and me included, that will continue to support them almost no matter what, for the most part. And yeah, like again, the more people you convert to being in your core audience, the more you've got to kind of take care of them, because the more people, and the more you take care of your core audience, the more people will be in that core audience, so to speak, because everyone will feel like, hey, they're doing everything for us. Yes, they have to put the belt on a heel, a no good stinking heel here or there, or whatever it is, but they're doing that to culminate something else or to tell another story or whatever else it is. They're not just doing that because they want to piss us off. They're doing that to, you know, to raise interest in this person, or to raise, you know, the stakes, or to raise the angle, or to do something else, or whatever else it is. So that's their job of like giving you something and then saying, okay, cool, we want you to see this thing that we've got, you know, every week and be invested in it. This is what we're going to show you, what we've got. We've got it planned for this person and basically everyone on a roster. Don't go away, because we will get back to them. Okay? We promise you we have the best of intentions in mind, and we are going somewhere with this. We're not just dicking about and screwing you around. No, we do care, and we do appreciate you, and we certainly do not want you to feel like, what are we doing? We know what we're doing. We understand the frustration or whatever, but you've got to understand from our perspective that this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to draw people in by saying, hey, we want you to invest in the people that whoever you want to invest in for another few months, so that we can have another build up for some other people. We will get there. Yeah. So that is hopefully where we're at. And that is what I'm crossing my fingers on too. But if they don't do that and they don't deliver on those things, that's where I will be saying, hey, come on, you need to deliver on these things. And I have said that several times. Like, it's like they have delivered on some of these things, but they have been a little bit slow in some of them. And like, I think, like, again, people just want to get back to where they were. And sometimes they do feel like, oh man, I don't care whatever you're trying to do or whatever. So just give me the thing that you're going to give me. We're going to give me in 6 months, in 3 months. You know, people need a little bit more patience and a little bit more understanding with it and whatnot, rather than being like upset and pissy online or whatever else it is, you know, and that sort of thing. They need to just ride it out and see where the ride takes them. It's like a roller coaster, guys. There are ups and downs. So this might feel like a down, but we're going up. We are going up. We have a direction, hopefully. And if you're paying attention, we will get there. So those are my thoughts on why they have to do this. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but I hope you have enjoyed it, because I need to explain these things sometimes. This is part of my job and part of what I enjoy about wrestling as well. So that is why I do these things. But anyway, hope you have enjoyed, as I said, and hope you'll join me again in another one.